हेलो दोस्तों, वेलकम टू द लाइव सेशन। तो आज हम देखेंगे एनसीईआरटी ज्योग्राफी क्लास 11 का चैप्टर 6 जियोमॉर्फिक प्रोसेसेस। तो शुरू करते हैं। आफ्टर लर्निंग अबाउट हाउ द अर्थ वाज born, हाउ इट evolved its crust and other inner layers, how its crustal plates moved and are moving, and other information on earthquake, the forms of volcanism, and about the rocks and minerals the crust is composed of. It is time to know in detail about the surface of the earth on which we live. Let us start with this question. Why is the surface of the earth uneven? The earth's crust is dynamic. You are well aware that it has moved and moves vertically and horizontally. Of course, it moved a bit faster in the past than the rate at which it is moving now. The differences in the internal forces operating from within the earth which built up the crust have been responsible for the variations in the outer surface of the crust. The Earth's surface is being continuously subjected to external forces induced basically by energy or sunlight. Of course, the internal forces are still active, though with different intensities. That means the Earth's surface is being continuously subjected to by external forces originating within the Earth's atmosphere and by internal forces from within the Earth. The external forces are known as exogenic forces and the internal forces are known as endogenic forces. The action of exogenic forces result in wearing down or degradation of relief or elevations and filling up aggradation of basins or depressions on the Earth's surface. The phenomenon of wearing down of a relief variation of the surface of the Earth through erosion is known as gradation. The endogenic forces continuously elevate or build up parts of the Earth's surface, and hence the exogenic processes fail to even out the relief variations of the surface of the Earth. So variation remains as long as the opposing actions of exogenic and endogenic forces continue. In general terms, the endogenic forces are mainly land building forces and exogenic forces are mainly land wearing forces. The surface of the earth is sensitive. Humans depend on it for their sustenance and have been using it extensively and intensively. So, it is essential to understand its nature in order to use it effectively without disturbing its balance and diminishing the potential for the future. Almost all organisms contribute to sustain the Earth's environment. However, humans have caused extensive damage to the environment through overuse of resources. Use we must, but must also leave its potential enough to sustain life through the future. Most of the surface of the earth had and has been shaped over very long periods of time, hundreds and thousands of years. And because of its use and misuse by humans, its potential is being diminished at a fast rate. If the processes we shaped and are shaping the surface of the earth into varieties of forms, shapes, and the nature of material of which it is composed of are understood, precautions can be taken to minimize the detrimental effects of human use and to preserve it for posterity. Geomorphic processes. You would like to know the meaning of geomorphic processes. The endogenic and exogenic forces causing physical stresses and chemical actions on earth materials and uh, bringing about changes in the configuration of the surface of the earth are known as geomorphic processes. Dystrophism and volcanism are endogenic geomorphic processes. These have already been discussed in brief in the preceding unit. Weathering, mass wasting, erosion, and deposition are exogenic geomorphic processes. These exogenic processes are dealt with in this chapter. Any exogenic element of nature like water, ice, wind, etc., capable of acquiring and transporting earth materials can be called a geomorphic agent. When these elements of nature become mobile due to gradients, they remove the materials and transport them over slopes and deposit them at a lower level. Geomorphic processes and geomorphic agents, especially exogenic, unless stated separately, are one and the same. A process is a force applied on earth materials affecting the same. An agent is a mobile medium like running water, moving ice masses, wind, waves, and current, etc., which removes, transports, and deposits Earth's materials. Running water, groundwater, glacier, wind, waves, and current, etc., can be called geomorphic agents. Do you think it is essential to distinguish geomorphic agents and geomorphic processes? Gravity, besides being a directional force activating all downslope movement of matter, also causes stress on the Earth's materials. Indirect gravitational stresses activate wave and tide induced currents and winds. Without gravity and gradients, there would be no mobility and hence no erosion, transportation, and deposition are possible. So, gravitational stresses are as important as the other geomorphic processes. Gravity is the force that is keeping us in contact with the surface, and it is the force that switches on the movements of all surface material on earth. All the movement either within the earth or on the surface of the earth occur due to gradients from higher levels to lower levels, from high pressure to lower pressure areas, etc. Endogenic processes. The energy emanating from within the earth is the main force behind endogenic geomorphic processes. This energy is mostly generated by radioactivity, rotational and tidal friction, and primordial heat from the origin of the earth. This energy, due to geothermal gradients and heat flow from within, induces dystrophism and volcanism in the lithosphere. Due to variation in geothermal gradients and heat flow from within, crustal thickness and strength, the action of endogenic forces are not uniform, and hence the tectonically controlled original crustal surface is uneven. Dystrophism. All processes that move, elevate, or build up portions of the Earth's crust come under dystrophism. They include orogenic processes involving mountain building through severe folding and effective long and narrow belts of Earth's crust. Epeirogenic processes involving uplift or warping of large parts of the Earth's crust. Earthquakes involving local, relatively minor movements. Plate tectonics involving horizontal movements of crustal plates. In the process of orogeny, the crust is severely deformed into folds. Due to epeirogeny, there may be simple deformation. Orogeny is a mountain building process, whereas epeirogeny is continental building process. Through the process of orogeny, epeirogeny, earthquakes, and plate tectonics, there can be faulting and fracturing of the crust. All these processes cause pressure, volume, and temperature (PVD) changes, which in turn induce metamorphism of rocks. Epeirogeny and orogeny cite the differences. Volcanism. Volcanism includes the movement of molten rocks, magma, onto or toward the Earth's surface, and also formation of many intrusive and extrusive volcanic forms. Many aspects of volcanism have already been dealt in detail. Under volcanoes in Unit 2 and under igneous rock in the preceding chapter in this unit. What do the words volcanism and volcanoes indicate? Exogenic processes. The exogenic processes derive their energy from atmosphere determined by the ultimate energy from the sun and also the gradients created by tectonic factors. Why do you think that the slopes or gradients are created by tectonic factors? Gravitational force acts upon all earth materials having a sloping surface and tend to produce moment of matter in downslope direction. Force applied per unit area is called stress. Stress is produced in a solid by pushing or pulling. This induces deformation. Forces acting along the faces of earth materials are shear stress. Separating forces. It is this stress that breaks rocks and other earth materials. The shear stresses result in angular displacement or slippage. Besides the gravitational stress, earth materials become subjected to molecular stresses that may be caused by a number of factors, amongst which temperature changes, uh, crystallization, and melting are the most common. Chemical processes normally lead to the loosening of bonds between grains, dissolving of soluble minerals, or cementing materials. Thus, the basic reason that leads to weathering, mass movements, and erosion is development of stresses in the body of the earth materials. Temperature and precipitation are the two important climate elements that control various processes. All the exogenic geomorphic processes are covered under a general term denudation. The word denude means to strip off or to uncover. Weathering, mass wasting or movements, erosion and transportation are included in denudation. The flowchart gives the denudation process and their respective driving forces. It should become clear from this chart that for each process there exists a distinct driving force or energy. Uh, as there are different climatic regions owing to variation in thermal gradients created by latitudinal, seasonal, and land and water spread on the surface of the earth. The exogenic geomorphic processes vary from region to region. The density, type, and distribution of vegetation, which largely depend upon precipitation and temperature, also exert influence indirectly on exogenic geomorphic processes. Within different climatic regions, there there may be local variation of the effects of different climatic elements due to altitudinal difference, expect variations, and the variation in the amount of insolation received by north and south facing slopes as compared to east and west facing slopes. Further, due to differences in wind velocities and direction, amount and kind of precipitation, its intensity, the relation between precipitation and evaporation, daily range of temperature, freezing and thawing frequencies, depth of frost, penetration, the geomorphic processes vary within any climatic region. तो ये है denudation process and the driving force का flow chart. What is the sole driving force behind all the exogenic processes? Climatic factors being equal, the intensity of action of exogenic geomorphic processes depends upon type and structure of rocks. The term structure includes such aspects of rocks as folds, faults, orientation, and inclination of beds, presence or absence of joints, bedding planes, hardness or softness of constituent minerals, chemical susceptibility of minerals constituents, the permeability or impermeability etc. Different types of rocks with differences in the structure offer varying resistance to various geomorphic processes. A particular rock may be resistant to one process and non-resistant to another. And under varying climatic conditions, particularly rocks may exhibit different degrees of resistance to geomorphic processes, and hence they operate at differential rates and give rise to differences in topography. The effect of most of the exogenic geomorphic processes are small and slow and may be imperceptible in a short time span, but will in the long run affect the rock's ability due to continued fatigue. Finally, it boils down to one fact that the differences on the surface of the earth, though originally related to crustal evolution, continues to exist in some form or the other due to differences in type and structure of earth materials, differences in geomorphic processes, and in their rates of operation. Some of the exogenic geomorphic processes have been dealt in detail here. Weathering. Uh, Weathering is action of elements of weather and climate over earth materials. There are a number of processes within weathering which act either individually or together to affect the earth material in order to reduce them to fragmental state. Weathering is defined as mechanical disintegration and chemical decomposition of rocks through the action of various elements of weather and climate. As very little or no motion of materials takes place in weathering, it is an in situ or on site process. Is this little motion, which can occur sometimes due to weathering, synonymous with transportation? If not, why? Weathering processes are conditioned by many complex geological, climate, topographic, and vegetative factors. Climate is of particular importance. Not only weathering processes differ from climate to climate, but also the depth of the weathering mantle. Uh, Activity. Mark the latitude values of different climatic regions in figure and compare the details. There, there are three major groups of weathering processes: chemical, physical, or mechanical, biological weathering processes. Very rarely does any one of these processes ever operate completely by itself, but quite often a dominance of one process can be seen. Chemical weathering processes. A group of weathering processes with solution, carbonation, hydration, oxidation, and reduction act on the rocks to decompose, dissolve, or reduce them to a fine clastic state through chemical reactions by oxygen, surface, and or soil, water, and other acid. Water and air, oxygen and carbon dioxide, along with heat, must be present to speed up all chemical reaction. Over and above the carbon dioxide present in the air, decomposition of plants and animals increases the quantity of carbon dioxide underground. These chemical reactions on various minerals are very much similar to the chemical reaction in a laboratory. Physical weathering processes. Physical or mechanical weathering processes depend on some applied forces. The applied forces could be Gravitational force such as overburden pressure, load, and shearing stress, expansion force due to temperature changes, crystal growth or animal activity, water pressures controlled by wetting and drying cycles. Many of these forces are applied both at the surface and within different earth materials, leading to rock fracture. Most of the physical weathering processes are caused by thermal expansion and pressure release. These processes are small and slow but can cause great damage to the rocks. Because of continued fatigue, the rocks suffer due to repetition of contraction and expansion. Biological activity and weathering. Biological weathering is contribution to our removal of minerals and ions from the weathering environment and physical changes due to growth or movement of organism. Burrowing and weeding by organisms like earthworms, termites, rodents, etc. help in exposing the new surface to chemical attack and assists in the penetration of moisture and air. Human beings, by disturbing vegetation, plowing, and cultivating soils, also help in mixing and creating new contacts between air, water, and minerals in earth materials. Decaying plant and animal matter help in the production of humic, carbonic, and other acids with enhanced decay and solubility of some elements. Plant root exert a tremendous pressure on the earth material, mechanically breaking them apart. Special effects of weathering. Exfoliation. This has already been explained under physical weathering processes of unloading, thermal concentration and expansion, and salt weathering. Exfoliation is a result but not a process. Flaking up of more or less curved sheets of cells from over rocks or bedrock results in smooth and rounded surfaces. Exfoliation can occur due to expansion and contraction induced by temperature changes. Exfoliation domes and towers results due to unloading and thermal expansion respectively. Significance of weathering. Weathering processes are responsible for breaking down the rocks into smaller fragments and preparing the way for formation of not only regolith and soil but also erosion and mass movements. Uh, Biomes and biodiversity is basically a result of forest vegetation, and forests depend upon the depth of weathering mantles. Erosion cannot be significant if the rocks are not weathered. That means weathering aids mass wasting, erosion, and reduction of relief, and changes in landforms are a consequence of erosion. Weathering of rocks and deposits helps in the enrichment and concentration of certain valuable ores of iron, manganese, aluminium, copper, etc., which are of great importance for the national economy. Weathering is an important process in the formation of soils. When rocks undergo weathering, some materials are removed through chemical or physical leaching by groundwater, and thereby the concentration of remaining materials increases. Without such a weathering taking place, the concentration of the same valuable materials may not be sufficient and economically viable to explore, process, and refine. This is what is called enrichment. तो दोस्तों आज के लिए इतना ही, बाकी का चैप्टर हम कल कंप्लीट करेंगे। आज के लिए इतना ही। थैंक यू, थैंक्स फॉर जॉइनिंग।